Hello, I'm Claire Dyer, and welcome to Dyer Consequences here on Unprecedented TV, the place where your voice matters. In a world full of noise, we believe in letting every idea, thought, and opinion have its moment, the space where censorship does not exist, where stories you're not being told finally get a voice, while mainstream media hides, twists, or ignores inconvenient truths. We are here to lay it all out, unfiltered, uncensored, and unapologetic. We will try to deliver you the truth the best we can. So please do like and subscribe, and more importantly, do follow us. Today's show is going to be a little different in structure. I'm used to separating my two aims, one to gain awareness, to show people the truth and that there is an agenda. But most importantly, we are here in a spiritual and a psychological war between good and evil, one in which I believe the scales are not tipped in our favour of good, and the balance definitely needs to be restored. A war that is, I believe, against humanity. So, let's keep it simple. A group of dark forces working together to slowly erode humanity. Systems that are built to keep basically people distracted, emotionally reactive, and tired. A distracted population doesn't organise, it doesn't reflect, and they don't think logically, and it doesn't act locally. People, they're encouraged to feel angry, moral, and righteous, and instead of behaving morally, and emotion replaces action. I've said this many times before. We get treated more like children and them acting like our parents. And over time, people internalize that role. When everyone is put into groups and boxes, no shared we even exists. So collective responsibility, it just collapses. And everyone wants to belong somewhere. But through so many groups and boxes and labels and identities, everyone ultimately just becomes divided. After enough of these broken systems and empty promises, people just stop believing their actions matter anymore. I want to remind people of their humanity and to look into their heart and soul, because ultimately without this, we are, as a species, we're lost. The other part is campaigning and be physically proactive against certain aspects of this agenda. Fight the fight where necessary, where some of you will actually be used to me talking quite a lot here and there and highlighting issues, their acts, their policies currently going on and still being introduced. A lot of these are happening in my own village. We were all affected by COVID. We all suffered lockdowns. And for some of us, we felt coerced into taking a vaccine that was rushed through trials with no long-term data, whilst others, like myself, were ostracised from society for refusing, not being allowed to enter clubs, pubs, events, or even get on a plane to travel anywhere. We have been inflicted with ULEZ, a war against the motorists, but especially the poorer of society and vulnerable. Parking charges, the loss of amenities, poor public transport, banks closing, solar farms, battery farms, housing on greenbelt. And some of you may see me quite regularly standing on the side of the road in all weather conditions, refusing to allow the install of the ULEZ cameras here in Greater London, along with now adding 5G to my list as well. So, and also trying to hold local councils to account. Every local issue is actually, in fact, a national issue, and it is part of a global agenda. There are many people who are willing to stand up and be proactive. And I've been fortunate enough to actually have a good few honest and trusted people stand side by side with me to go into these battles. I don't voice my opinions on what's happening on a daily basis. As I've always said, and to myself, that if I have nothing to say, then I'm not saying anything at all, although some would disagree because I do talk a lot. But most recently, I stepped into a new role as a somewhat journalist come presenter, and it really wasn't easy at first, but by listening to my intuition, the show just found its own flow and its concept just came together naturally. My show's mantra slogan, if you like, is I give a voice to the voiceless, those that have no platform or social media presence and that mainstream media are just not interested in because it's not relevant or it's censored or it doesn't suit the political current climate. Those that have their own story to tell, something they have or are personally experiencing the issues they are currently facing, whether it be harm, trauma, abuse, wrongdoing, witnessing or being at the hands of misconduct within our public institutions. Some of these people are fighting for justice every day. They too, from their personal lived experiences, have dedicated themselves to standing up against injustice. So today, I feel in a world full of censorship, I'm continuing to fight against my own across all social media platforms. Fighting algorithms is hard. Getting the right hashtags or keywords right is just infuriating. And I absolutely hate technology with a passion, but it is a means to an end, and it is something that I struggle with quite a bit. And I think many of you will also actually relate to this. And it can sometimes feel literally like a job in itself. I am just one small voice out of many, trying to stand up and say what is happening to us, the people, and it's wrong. And today I want to speak my own truth using my show, Dire Consequences, which was aptly named by Lembit Opik, CEO of Unprecedented. And I say good or bad, the consequences of us not standing united has put us in a dire situation. And also some may say that coming head to head with me is something short of dire consequences. So a very good choice of title there for the show. And I don't think it was something that I would have been able to come up with myself. This media station, it is relatively new, and it is one that is dedicated to giving you the information that sits behind closed doors. And so I feel quite proud to be a part of it. So today I'm using this platform because it gives me complete freedom to speak. And as I've said to Lembit many times, the second it doesn't, I'm off. So I have something to say, and I'm going to say it because I'm not one to shy away from that. And what I want to talk about is how easy it is to lose yourself within groups, whether it's family, friends, religion, organisations, or the political organisations, how some can be corrupted from the inside slowly and quietly when people compromise values for power, comfort, or convenience until the original purpose is slowly drained out. And I'm sure many of you will also relate to this also. Communities, at their very core are about the bonds that tie people together, the shared values, experiences and goals that shape the collective identity of a place. And where I live in Biggin Hill, the furthest village south that sits in Greater London, unfortunately for us, and I've lived here my whole life, and it had huge historical significance that the locals are still proud of, and it's best known for its role in the Second World War, but it began as a Royal Flying Corps airfield in 1917, used to defend London from German air raids during the First World War, our RAF during Battle of Britain, 1940. This history, it does give the community meaning and pride and continuity, and a sense that our village matters not just locally, but nationally and probably globally in some ways. And when these bonds are strong, people, they do begin to work not just for their own benefit, but for the benefit of the whole community. Imagine a small town or village where everyone knows each other, where generations of families have lived and worked and raised children, and people are invested in more than just their own lives. They care deeply about the town's village future, its culture, and the legacy. For example, again, where I live, for a lot of people, they feel the village is it's not what it used to be. Crime rate is up, vandalism, antisocial behaviour, loss of independent businesses that were run by local people, poverty, extensive long-term roadworks, road closures that have literally become a joke, parking charges, extremely poor public transport, ULEZ, land grabs like housing developments, the solar battery farms on Greenbelt. I mean, you name it, there just seems to be a lot to moan about. And believe me, people are moaning. All of these things are literally making people's lives so stressful and therefore becoming more apathetic. But in order to move forward, it takes more than just individual effort. It requires the collective strength of a united group, a team, formed not out of obligation, but from a shared sense of purpose. And this to me is the essence of community, driven action where each person brings their skills, their ideas and their energy to the table, contributing not for personal gain, but because they believe in the well-being of the whole and they care about the people where they live and they want only the best for it. A well-formed team in a community like this is more than just a group of people working together. It's a powerful force for change. It's a collaborative effort that transforms vision into reality. The decisions made by such a team, they're rooted in the common good. And the success of one person is measured by the success of the community as a whole. But I'd say, however, whilst I and many others have these idealistic visions of community solidarity, or even a nation united, and maybe I'm deluded and have rose-tinted glasses on, and maybe I have too much hope, but it's one that would literally be a powerful force to be reckoned with. The reality is that due to all of these added pressures and stress, nobody really wants to come together and work as a community for the good of a community. And they rely solely on councillors, a residents association, or just a small handful of people willing to actually step up. This in itself is a huge problem, and it's one that I face almost daily. A lot of people, they do care about antisocial behaviour, littering, crime, decaying of public spaces, etc. All of it, everything that's wrong about where you live in society. But caring has been redefined as complaining and posting and moaning in WhatsApp chats and on Facebook community pages, or voting once every few years if you still believe in voting, rather than actually day-to-day civic behaviour. The mindset, it becomes someone should do something about this instead of what is the smallest thing that maybe I could do to make a positive difference. And a few things play into this. Our current problems, they feel huge and systemic. And so individual action feels pointless. And if you can't fix everything, then people do absolutely nothing. We have hero narratives, politics, media, social media, and even activism. It sells the idea that a single leader, a movement, or moment will fix everything. And that encourages spectators and not participants. There is also a high level of mistrust. And I feel that when people feel institutions or neighbours don't pull their weight, they stop trying to, and responsibility becomes a fool's game. Confronting bad behaviour, volunteering your time, or holding standards is uncomfortable and socially risky. So complaining is just far easier and safer. But communities that they don't collapse because of big villains, and they erode because of a few small abdications, not challenging antisocial behaviour politely when it's safe, not showing up to local meetings. And I had this just yesterday. We have a community of probably around about 10,000, and 26 people turned up to our emergency services meeting, not showing basic decency and not caring about shared spaces and not backing the people up that do actually step up. However, we do have organisations and movements seemingly standing up, and this is the part that is the darker side to how some organisations, whether they're political, business or social, can distort the very spirit of collective effort. Sometimes as organisations grow in size and complexity and influence, they sometimes shift away from serving the community's needs and begin to serve the needs of the few at the top. Leaders driven by the allure of power and control and money and status, and they may start to prioritize their own interests over those of the people they once actually sought to serve, unbeknown to those around them or the wider community. And this is where I feel that the subtle danger lies. People can lose themselves to an organisation or a cause, not realising that what began as a movement for the common good has transformed into a platform for personal gain. And some even create these groups and organisations or enter into them for the sole purpose of gratification or gain. Some are even deliberately put in place to control, manipulate and corrupt. The promises of wealth and influence or recognition can literally seduce individuals into forgetting the roots of why they joined in the first place. The more they climb within the structure of the organisation, the more distant they become from the people they were once meant to represent. And in many cases, this transformation is gradual, and the change begins with small compromises here and there, a decision that benefits a few over the many, and a quiet step away from the community's values in favour of personal advancement. And over time, this erosion of principles can lead to a complete disconnect between those in power and the community they're there to serve. And in some cases, leaders may even become more invested in maintaining their own status and the organisation's power than in addressing the real needs of the people. And this is called a dictatorship, when they seek to quiet the mouths of a community by discrediting and controlling the narrative and gaslighting and imitation, I can't even say the word now, and fear, basically, scaremongering. And when one or two selfish, narcissistic people are a part of a group, their influence often goes unnoticed at first. And you're looking at one right now. Psychologically, people are wired to seek acceptance and avoid conflict. So the group just slowly adapts to whoever is the most demanding or confident. Small compromises are made and opinions are softened, boundaries are ignored, and until what once felt wrong just starts to gradually feel normal. Their, their reality is literally an echo chamber, and they reinforce each other's views. And over time, they may begin using the same wording and terminology, almost morphing into one, repeating identical phrases as if they are shared truths. This shared language strengthens the illusion that their perspective is objective, when in reality it is self contained. And any challenge from the outside, the bubble feels threatening and is quickly dismissed or reframed. And as this emotional energy and attention flow toward them, independent thinking within the group weakens and empathy lessens, self reflection fades, and the group slowly mirrors the attitudes and the behaviors of those at the center. And many people gradually merging into one mindset shaped by repetition, reinforcement, and unchecked ego. And everything comes down to ego. I personally, over the last 6 years, I've referenced George Orwell's Animal Farm many times. I remember reading the book actually as a child, a story about farm animals who rebel against their human owner to take control of the farm. And at first, they hope to create a fair society where everyone is equal. However, as the pigs take charge, they slowly start abusing their power and becoming just as corrupt as the humans they overthrow. Some animals are equal, but some are more equal than others. The book is literally a political metaphor about the dangers of a corrupt dictatorship and a totalitarian world, and how power can literally corrupt even the most well-intentioned leaders. And we were being told years ago with this book, but even as a child, I probably wasn't able to actually take in what it actually meant. And so ultimately, what is lost is not just the integrity of any organization that has lost its way or is showing themselves to not be in the best interests of the people, but the trust of the community. And when people sense or see that those in power are no longer working for their best interests, they begin to feel disillusioned, disengaged, and disconnected from the very community they once helped to build, whilst others who start questioning look for accountability. When any organisation, institution, or public body goes unchecked and stops acting in the best interest of its people, its community, the first signs of resistance usually comes in the form of questions. People ask for clarity. They want transparency and accountability. Psychologically, this is a threat, not just to authority, but to shared story the organization tells itself about being right or necessary. At that point, the response is rarely calm self reflection. More often, the organization closes ranks. Questioners are reframed as difficult or negative or disloyal or abusive is a key one. You name it. Language shifts from addressing concerns to protecting their reputation. All attempts are made to silence those that attempt to question or go against them. And this is a classic defense mechanism. And rather than confronting the uncomfortable truths, the system preserves itself by discrediting those that are asking the questions. And fear and conformity begin to do the work, and others stay silent, avoid being labeled or excluded. Accountability is replaced by procedure, and they start caring more about the looks than about what is actually being done. And instead of fixing real problems, they focus on appearances, good messaging, polished statements, meetings that go nowhere, or actions that are meant to look responsible without actually changing anything meaningful. It's about protecting image and control, not solving the issues. So, from the outside, it may seem like something is happening, but underneath, the same problems remain. It's a way of managing perception rather than actually taking responsibility. And over time, the organization becomes less about serving the community and more about maintaining control until the gap between its stated values and its actions becomes impossible to ignore, either forcing real change or accelerating its collapse. As we move forward, we have to remain vigilant. We cannot allow ourselves to get lost in the system, the matrix, the show, the game, to allow ourselves to be seduced by the promises of power or influence that often come with leadership within an organization or a cause. To be lost to admiration, fame, or money because they quietly rewrite who you're accountable to. It's not greed or ego at first, it's substitution. Admiration replaces self trust, fame replaces purpose, money replaces meaning. And because society celebrates all of these things, the loss looks like success from the outside. And to step away would mean disappointing people, losing status, admitting that you drifted. That's why many people and many organizations, institutions, and movements, they double down instead. And it's safer to stay lost than to grieve who you might have actually been. The fight to preserve our values, to stay true to the collective good, requires constant self reflection, the ongoing habit of examining your own thoughts, your actions, and your motives, especially when things feel uncomfortable or when you're challenged. In layman's terms, it means regularly asking yourself, why did I react that way? What part did I play in this? Or could I even be wrong? We must always ask ourselves, why did we start this journey in the first place? And should always remind ourselves of that, of why we started doing what we did in the first place. This is what keeps people grounded in reality. It helps separate ego from truth. And without it, people tend to blame others, justify their behavior, or just keep repeating the same mistakes over and over. With it, growth is possible because self reflection creates awareness and accountability and the ability to change rather than just defend. It's it's easy to forget the roots of a cause and to be blinded by success or progress. But we must remember the key to rebuilding that sense of unity lies in the recognition that true leadership is about service and not self interest. And a real and healthy community and a healthy world and lasting change are not about personal gain, they are about the people, the values, and the shared vision that brings us together. It is not one person's job or goal to change things for the better. It's not down to one person to clear up another's mess. A truly effective team thrives when its members are grounded in shared values and transparency and a commitment to the common good. Power, when used correctly, should never be about control. It should be about empowering others and creating a space where the community, in all its diversity and complexity, can thrive. So, as I finish today's show, I want to remind us all that we are the stewards of our own communities. And it is down to each and every one of us, if we all care about the place we live, our homes, our neighbourhoods, our community, and this is our community's logo, and our country, that silence or indifference lets problems grow. Waiting for a saviour, whether it's political, cultural, or moral, lets people avoid the harder truth. No one is coming. No one person is coming to save us. It's just the ordinary people standing up and doing the unglamorous things consistently. The uncomfortable flip side by not doing this is that the community you get is, to a large extent, is one that the people collectively tolerate. Standards don't disappear overnight. They're quietly lowered because enforcing them feels awkward. And change doesn't happen by waiting for somebody else to come and fix things. It happens when people speak up, organize, and work together. When everyone takes even just a small part, asking questions, offering ideas, holding leaders or systems accountable, being proactive, the community, it becomes stronger. Individually, our impact might feel small, and I know that I feel like I'm fighting the small battles in a much bigger war. But collectively, if we all did this, consistent action, it can reshape the environment, the rules, and the culture for the better. And maybe I have too much hope, but that's what I believe. It's about turning concern into action and action into real lasting change. The fight, it's not just for us, but for those who come after us. And I hear so many people say this to me, that they're older now and they won't see this in their lifetime, but it's their children and it's their grandchildren. And it's our children, our grandchildren, and our great grandchildren, for the values we hope to leave behind. We must remain aware of the traps of power and self-interest, and we must never lose sight of what truly matters: the well-being of the collective, the voice of the voiceless, and the shared responsibility we all have in shaping the future. And it's only when we remain humble and self-aware and committed to serving others that a team, I feel, can truly reflect the heart of the community, working not for the benefit of a few, but for the well-being of all. Because once responsibility becomes somebody else's job, decline isn't a mystery of how did this even happen. It's simply just basic maths. So today wasn't about having all the answers, and I really don't have all the answers, other than I just feel that people need to step up and play their part, because we are all in this together. That's how I feel. It's about remembering that none of us are meant to figure things out alone. And humanity moves forward not because we agree on everything, but because we choose to listen, we choose to show up, and to care beyond ourselves. So I'm Claire Dyer, and this has been Dyer Conce's Good or bad, on unprecedented TV, where independent voices come together and real conversations are never going to be pushed aside. And together, by sharing our voices and working as a community, and I keep saying this, we have to work as communities. We may have a chance at making a real difference. And I truly do believe that, because then what else do we have? So please join us. And you can currently find us on YouTube and X. And please keep standing for truth and for each other. And I will see you again soon.